Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where we talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Whiskey Cavalier. A lot of interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. First and foremost, we did dive a little deeper into Frankies Past. Interestingly enough, I'd completely forgotten about that thing that Susan had brought up at the beginning of the season. I'm like, oh yeah, Frankie's parents are both dead. I was like, oh, I'd completely forgotten about that. But apparently, it kind of plays a heavy role in this case because obviously there's a whole thing about oh yeah, Frankie kind of being a little shut off from people. That's kind of always been her way to kind of protect herself from everything. It turns out, I love that little thing at the beginning where Will is like, wait, you let your guy get away? You came after me because you thought I was hurt? Because she's like, Will, it's like seeing her so concerned and everything. He's like, oh my God, we're making such progress. But lo and behold, this is about taking down this cartel guy named Benson. He's connected to a dude named Daniel, which I don't know that actor's name, but I've seen him in stuff. The movies I kind of associate him with is some of the Fast and Furious movies. I want to say Tokyo Drift was the first one he popped up in. I think within the confines of chronologically of the movies being released, that was the first one he was in. But nevertheless, I'm going off on a tangent. But yeah. Well, he's married to a lady named Kelly. Kelly is actually kind of the closest thing Frankie has ever had to a mother since her parents passed away, because she was a friend to the family, and she took her in and was kind of like her guardian and everything. And Frankie kind of looks up to her because she was kind of very cold and distant. And it's the fact of the matter is, she kind of shut herself off from me. Almost says it with pride. And you have Will being like, that's not something people usually kind of, or say. They don't usually kind of say that glimmering with pride and stuff like that. Interesting enough, too, I should also know, the actress who plays Kelly, I want to she's popped up in a few things, too. She played Dr. Cox's ex-wife in Scrubs. They eventually got back together, didn't they, at some point in the series? I feel like they got... I don't remember if they ever got remarried. I think they did. I can't remember. It's been a while since I watched Scrubs. But also, she was in Cougar Town, so that was pretty dope, too. But nevertheless, so it's nice seeing Frankie and her reunited and everything. I also love that scene of oh wow, 38 minutes. Ooh, I knew I could outlast you. I mean, granted, you weren't trying to not talk to me for 38 minutes. My head was about to explode and everything. Will being up, and the whole thing of getting a photo of Kelly and Frankie and be oh, look at you guys. And he's what's up with this guy? He's taking a hug and everything. Yeah, I know. What's wrong? He tried to talk to me. I was I know, right? And then he's oh my God, there's two of them. I should delete this photo immediately. But I do love kind of the little trip down memory lane, seeing, Frankie in a dress and everything, looking all pretty and everything. And he's like, dude, I got to send this to literally everyone I know. And she's getting all embarrassed. She'd actually made a scrapbook of Frankie and stuff. And Frankie was actually kind of surprised by it. I was why would you even make something like that? Because Kelly isn't as distant as she was before. Because that whole aspect of kind of being distant is an aspect that Frankie kind of learned from her. It was kind of her way to protect herself, to kind of hide her heart, and kind of escape her pain. I'm sure, obviously that probably all stemmed from the whole aspect of oh yeah, losing her parents and everything like that. So she doesn't kind of get weighed down by that sadness. I think Kelly was just what she needed, and obviously that helped her becoming a CIA agent and everything. So it kind of worked out in the end. But we see that Kelly's kind of changed because obviously meeting Daniel and having their son Tommy changed everything for her. She became happy and everything. I even love at one point, I forgot what the circumstances was, where Will was oh, she's you want a hug? And Will's yeah. And she's get real. And he's oh, come on. He's don't worry. There's plenty of time where I can change that. I love that. But, you can even tell it was kind of bothering Frankie a little bit how open Kelly was being. It was kind of okay, this is definitely weird. Even Will taking the picture of her with cornrows and stuff like that. I love it. Just Frankie being so embarrassed. It's you never see her embarrassed like that. I mean, in certain senses, but you see her so uncomfortable like that. I love it. But I thought it was kind of a nice twist, the whole Daniel situation, because it's oh, he's going to no, I'm going to bring Benson to you guys. It's no, don't do something stupid. I was oh, come on, Daniel. Come on, dude, don't do this. It's part of you is oh, man, the fact of the matter is, you're well, you respect what he's trying to do because he's trying to make things good between him, Kelly, and Tommy. It's the fact is, I did all this bad stuff. I needed to make it right. And then lo and behold, turns out he's the boss. I was didn't see that twist coming. And even him killing Benson like that and then showing up later on and being oh yeah, guys, Benson never showed up. Don't worry, guys, I won't, I'll help you guys. Thank you for giving me a second chance and stuff like that. It's kind of all kind of going against what Will's trying to get across of like, oh, you should, you know, be open with more people and stuff like that. The moment she's kind of willing to give him a chance, because obviously she was doing it for Kelly's sake, because it's like, your family means so much to you, because he was like, just give me the chance to say, you know, tell her the, you know, the truth myself, as well as say goodbye to my son. But obviously that ended up being a load of bull crap. Because this all ties into Susan's situation of her giving that dude the truth serum. And I love that, like, he's telling all this stuff because she's like, oh, the fact of the matter is you working for powerful men. Is that because you have daddy issues or because you get some sexual pleasure from it? And the guy's like, both. And you have both Jay and Edgar being like, holy shit. You know, it's like, wow, Susan's scary. And Jay's like, well, wouldn't you say that about every woman? And Edgar's like, yeah, that's true, but Susan's just kind of on a whole other level too. So, but lo and behold, it's like, oh yeah, Daniel's actually the bad guy. I love it too, that whole thing of like, oh, the guy comes in and he's like, and Will's like, hey, do you want to build a snowman? And you know, shoots him, it takes him down, and she's like, what the hell's up with the whole, like, you want to build a snowman thing? He's like, well, I was listening to the, what was it, the Frozen soundtrack, you know, it's like, you know, and she's like, oh, you're so, she's like, you're so hot. He's like, oh, come on. He was talking about the fact of the matter is you should listen to it too, because it's like, it's good for cardio kind of, you know, before he does his thing and everything. I love it. I just love that that's what you're listening to. I mean, to be fair, it's not just that. It's like musicals in general is kind of get the blood pumping and kind of get him ready for action and stuff like that. So I also love that later on when he helps out Frankie, he's like, yeah, I helped you take down this guy you're having so much trouble with, you know. I was also taking care of the, you know, the 3 guys that were trying to kill me and everything. So I thought that was pretty neat. And I also love him bringing it back. It's like, oh, see, like, I saved you. I came here to save you because I thought you were in trouble. You know, like you did to me back in Los Angeles. Isn't that kind of nice how that all kind of came together? But sadly, it turned out the reason why he was able to get away, he was expecting him because Kelly told him the truth. And it was kind of a sad moment where Kelly didn't want to listen to Frankie, because for her, it's like she thought Frankie was kind of threatening everything, that she had, like, oh, she had finally found happiness. Because she even talked about it. She was actually sad once Frankie left because, you know, Frankie gave her, you know, something to care about, and obviously Frankie didn't keep in touch, obviously because Frankie's Frankie, and the fact is she just didn't want to, you know, she's afraid to open up and everything. And now that, you know, Kelly is kind of opening up, it's just, it kind of catches her off guard, because it's like, I think for her, it's like Kelly was kind of who made her who she is, and it's like to see her caring and stuff like that, it's like, oh, this isn't the woman I know, like, who isn't, the one I know isn't all like emotionally attached to people like that. So, but she wasn't willing to listen, and it's like, the fact of the matter is, this is my family and you're not a part of it, which is so sad to hear, because it's like, obviously you mean the world to Frankie. You're the only thing she has, the closest thing she has to family when it's all said and done. And you know, it's like, oh, I never thought he would hurt you or anything like that. It's like, he tried to kill me, and I love every time that comes up, Will's like, also, I was there too, you know, I was almost, you know, killed as well, but I'm okay. But you know, Frankie is basically saying, like, because she's like, haven't you ever kind of, you know, made a mistake trying to protect someone that you care about? She's like, yeah, and I won't make that mistake again. And it's like, oh, kind of saying that Frankie might, you know, go back to like closing herself off. But you know, you have Will being like, oh, you know, Frankie, she'll get over it. And she's like, yeah, I do know Frankie. And I think that was almost Kelly's way of being like, yeah, and I think, you know, she might have done more. I could think in her mind, she's probably like, yeah, I might have made things worse because Frankie's going to be taking steps back to be cutting herself off. But I did like that conversation between Will and her too. She's like, I think I'm going to get a divorce. And Will's like, well, to be fair, that's a big step. You sure you want to take some time to think about it? The gunshots are going off, bam, bam, bam. And she's like, yeah, I think I'm pretty sure. And he's like, yeah, that's fair enough. I even love the situation of her being like, oh, you're so brave, but also really stupid. No wonder Frankie kind of like, she's like, what? That's not, me and Frankie were just partners. And she's like, sure. But when the time came and Daniel pointed a gun at Frankie, like, she was there to kind of get in the way, because it's like, I almost let you hurt her before, I'm not going to let you do that again. Obviously, you know, when it was all said and done, she slapped the shit out of Daniel, because it's like, the fact of the matter is, you didn't, you know, essentially he took for granted what they had built up together, this family, you know. And, you know, Frankie ends up hugging her after, you know, her stepping in the way like that. It's just kind of, you know, it's like, oh, we are family. It's like, you know, because, you know, once again, like, Frankie probably felt like, oh, there was truth to that. Like, oh, I'm not a part of your family. I guess I'm not that. And once again, it's like after losing her parents, she never got close to anyone other than, you know, Kelly. And so for her to do something like that, to even outright hug her like that, I wonder, did she ever hug Kelly when they were, you know, I mean, it's so interesting because that was the whole thing that was kind of being set up of like, oh, you guys want to hug, you guys can go ahead and do that. And it's like, lo and behold, this circumstances ends with that. And then a little Will smiling and everything. It's like, oh, that's so good. It is pretty nice because I do like what Kelly's telling her to, like, you know, even with everything that's happened, Kelly doesn't regret opening up her heart because, you know, with everything that happened, there's still good that came out of it. She got Tommy out of it, you know, and she's not afraid to kind of keep going forward no matter what. Obviously, Frankie, it's like, you know, she just, because for her, it's like in this field of work and just in general in life, you lose a lot of people you get close to, and so she's trying to protect herself. But her, you know, Kelly's telling her just, you know, they need to take a chance. And obviously, I love the whole thing of like her being like, okay, you want to hug Will? And he's like, oh man, of course. He's like, come on, you owe me one. Like all the times I've saved your life and everything. Once again, them just being cute and adorable. I love it. I also love Ray at the end too, being like, oh yeah, here's that fire looking for. He's like, really? No attempt to try and sway me to, you know, make up with you and everything? He's like, no. And he's like, okay. And then Ray's kind of, the moment Will's back is turned, he's like, yeah, pumping it. Like, yeah, me playing it cool. I love it. I thought that was kind of pretty neat. Also, once again, we seeing like Frankie grow as a person, like her being all compassionate and stuff like that. It's like, oh yeah, sometimes compassion is necessary. And Will's just kind of like, almost like, oh my God, I'm so proud of you. So there's that side of thing. Then there's the other side of the episode where it's like, oh yeah, Susan does psyche vows on people. It's like, oh, you did one on Frankie? Wait, does that mean you have one on all of us? Susan's like, what? Can we read it? What? And so they end up hacking it because it also turns out Jay's got a secret bat cave, you know, a secret lair and everything. And I love it. It's like literally everything is in there. It's like, oh, these are some glasses that explode. This explodes. Literally everything explodes in here. Isn't it awesome? Except for those two things over there. They don't explode. It's like, what's up with you and explosions, Jay? But I love it. They end up reading their files, and they really don't like what Susan has to say about them. And I love it when they're kind of like passive aggressive about it, and they're like telling Susan like, oh, they're like, she's like, you read your files. That's the problem. It's like the fact is that she wrote something about Will too, about him being, I guess they read everyone's files while they were at it because they ended up reading Will's, and he's like, oh, he gets too invested. Like he was going after a target. But the dude's dog, Roscoe, he ended up saving the dog. It's like, oh, yeah. The fact of the matter is, it's like, yeah, of course. But for him, it's like, well, it kind of didn't work out in the end because at his place, he can't have a dog. So, and I love him being like, when it's all said and done, they walked away. He's like, you put Roscoe in your files? He's like, come on, that's not cool. And she's like, how is Roscoe? He's like, oh, the fact of the matter is, I see the family that adopted him sent me something. Okay. But I don't trust someone who doesn't like dogs. I love that. And obviously, you know, Edgar's helping out with the whole Ray situation of trying to get, you know, Will back and everything. It's so interesting, like that relationship and everything. I love it. And, you know, like I said, Edgar's the one that kind of suggested, like, yo, dude, play it cool and everything. He's like, okay. And I thought it was kind of sweet what he had said, too, of being like, here I am trying my hardest to get my friend back. And you two are, you know, here doing your best to lose a friend. And even Edgar being like, Ray actually has a point. Jay's like, yeah, it's actually kind of sad that Ray actually does have a point. Like, it's actually that bad if Ray's literally making sense like that. It is kind of sweet, though. Like, I do love what they do in the end where they reveal, it's like, oh yeah, here's a man cave for Susan. It's like, yeah, this is a representation of our friendship, you know, no secrets between us. And it's like, oh, this is all amazing, guys. Yeah, Sally already knew about this place. I've known about it for months. It's like, Jesus, she's a witch, dude. Susan's really good. Especially, like I said, that whole true serum situation. Like, you know, Jay underestimated her, but the fact that she was able to convince that dude that she had literally injected him with a true serum that doesn't actually exist, it's like she's really good at getting into people's heads and kind of knowing them. That's why I think she works perfectly as kind of the great mediator of the team as a whole. I also love Ray being so happy and stuff of being like, oh yeah, like stupid and childish. It's like, oh yeah, he's kind of excited because it's like usually that's something Susan says about him. It's like, see you later, you stupid child. And you have Edgar being like, I hope that doesn't catch on. It's like, yeah, that sounds like something. I think Jay was kind of like, yeah, that sounds like something that's catchy enough to catch on. So I thought that was all so good. Like I said, I really appreciate learning that aspect about the whole, like, Frankie, and, you know, obviously she plans on keeping up with Kelly more. So, you know, opening up a little more. So it's just kind of nice all around to see the team, you know, where they are with all of this. So that was kind of pretty nice. So I am very interested to see where all this ends up taking us in the next episode. Next week's episode is, in fact, the season finale. So I'm very curious to see what ends up going down. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.